Uh, so I'm just all I do for. Let me stop.
Sorry, I messed that up.
No, you're fine. So what I had been doing for my intro? What is happening? Why wouldn't you just stop? See, that was the problem I had earlier. Is it like it like won't let you stop recording? Huh? Hell of an intro,
Uh,
Jared. So anyway, this is episode 5 of the Coltist. I guess we're just gonna hardball intro into this episode because basically Skype's not playing along, so there's no better way to fumble your way into sports media, my friend,
hey man, yeah,
than
great
this
introduction.
shithole of an introduction. But I suppose that the way the Colts have sort of stumbled into this season is
Yeah,
it's
it's
sort of
appropriate. It's
it's
like
probably
it's fitting.
appropriate.
It's fitting. It makes sense that we start off with the wrong foot.
Hmm.
It's pretty right.
Uh,
Like
but my name is
poetic
Jared
justice.
Malat. This is my 5th episode of my own podcast called The Coltist that I'm recording with a colleague of mine that I'm absolutely thrilled to have here, and I mean that up to this exact moment when I say it, I'm thrilled that you're here. This
Thanks,
is
man.
Mateo Calise.
Mateo
Uh,
Galis, yeah, yeah.
there you go.
Don't worry, I wasn't expecting you to get it right. I
Uh,
knew you were gonna botch it.
Pretty much. So I'm not even gonna say anything other than I'm sorry, and we both knew that was gonna happen.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you're
Yeah, no
welcome.
problem.
Um, Mateo is from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and as far as the people that view my content would be concerned, this is once in a lifetime that I actually would be thrilled to have happen again. I could tell you already, but to get to talk to someone that is in a different country about. And to also learn that you were watching the Dodgers game earlier tonight, so you're a
Yeah,
baseball fan. That
yeah,
obviously you're a football fan as far as you being from Argentina, meaning you
yeah.
watch soccer, and then
Football.
also are an American football fan. So I think
Yeah, that's right.
that's super interesting. I also love soccer.
Hmm.
I also I'm not as much of a baseball fan as I am a basketball fan.
Yeah,
So
no, I really like I actually went to two Indiana Pacers game, one in Miami and one in Brooklyn. When I was like, I usually go every other summer to the States. I
mhm,
once got to see the Pacers in New York,
mhm,
in Barclays Center Arena, and another
uh-huh.
time in the American Airlines Arena. And I actually got a T-shirt, like a Heat T-shirt.
Okay.
That
Okay.
was really lucky.
Did you
But
throw it back or
nah, nah. I
you kept it?
excuse me,
You kept
I have it right here.
it.
It's like a pajama shirt. Nah, the only problem with it is this was clearly made for Americans. It is almost
Yeah.
like a blanket for me. It's
Oh
like
man.
triple XL size. I'm not like that. Yeah, it works. Like gets the
It was
job done.
clearly made for Americans because it's like a
Yeah, yeah. Sorry,
blanket.
like no.
That is such a great uppercut. Like, ugh, fat people.
Sorry,
Anyway,
didn't mean to
no,
insult you there, but
it's
yeah.
great because the only thing I can say is here I am being the prick American that's like, why wouldn't you throw that shit away? And then you're like,
Hey
dude,
man,
it's like a
it was
blanket for
free.
me.
Like I
He kept
throw
himself
that back.
warm with something that I would have been like, throw it
I
back.
was like, no fucking way I was gonna throw that back. I was gonna keep it from it. It's like the perfect souvenir. I was really happy.
Yeah, I understand. And I'm like,
And
because,
wait,
like I
the
said, because I'm
best
an
part was that
American.
no, wait. The best part was that I actually beat like a Miami little kid that was in front of me,
Hmm.
like a 5-year old, 6-year old. It was like Mo Ali Cox against the Dolphins. Like that was the perfect recreation for like the shirt grab.
Yeah.
It was this little kid right in front of me, and I was like, bam, mine. No way on
Posted
earth
him
I'm gonna
up,
give it
huh?
to you. Yeah.
So also we have to start out this lengthy introduction from my friend here. Also has the best why I became a Colts fan story. So I'm gonna spit out the nuts and bolts, and then you actually get to tell
Yeah.
the story. But the nuts and bolts of this is you became a Colts fan out of spite.
Yeah. So let me tell the story. So my father lived in Boston like most of his adult life. He came back
Mhm.
to Argentina to settle down and have his family and such. And my little brother, that is 4 years younger than me, like he became a Patriots fan. Like my father lived in Boston, and
Yeah,
the Patriots were the right choice.
right.
And I just wanted like to mess with him, and I looked it up on Google. I searched New England Patriots rivals, and the Colts this was like Peyton Manning's last year with the Colts, like
Okay.
2010.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said like, fuck it, I want to mess with him, like
Yeah.
I want to be his rival. And
Okay.
I chose the Colts. I stuck with that. Now my very first season with the Colts was the Curtis Painter season. I was like, oh
Thank you for
shit,
sticking around.
yeah. At the time I was like, I can't believe like I pick a team and they immediately like go 2-14. I was like, what the? Uh, I was like, honestly, I was like this close
Regret.
to just saying, yeah, I'm a Patriots fan now. Like, no, luckily I stuck it out. Like it was this. I didn't want to be a bandwagon. I wanted like,
Right.
and I knew that good times were ahead, and I wanted to be able to say like, I was a Colts fan for the
Yeah.
Curtis Painter season. Like I'm a real one, and
You are a real one. You stuck it out after that shit show.
that was rough.
That was
Yeah,
rough. That was rough because I live in Indiana and I went to Purdue, and most of the people that I still interact with are either an Indiana University fan or an alumni. They actually went to
yeah,
IU. So imagine growing up. Like I've been a Colts fan since Jim Harbaugh, since the comeback kid
yeah.
in the 90s, and then they drafted Peyton Manning, and I wanted to play quarterback my whole life. So like, yes, there's a love affair, right? Like, of course, it was a dreamboat for me. Um, but imagine being like the Colts. You've basically been a fan since the Colts took a turn for the worse, effectively.
Yeah, I basically like
You
the
miss the
whole.
glory days.
No, but I got some of that at least with Andrew. I yeah, it's some sort of stuff like got to see the playoff.
Yeah, I hope, and I do believe that the Colts are going to put a highly competitive team on the field. I don't know if it'll ever be for a full season because, as I've been
Nah, we
saying, we're just every year we fight this injury bug. Um, I don't know. Stephen Reed actually made a good point. Like, why not just switch to grass and see what happens at this point? Like, what's the downside of? I think we were missing half of our starters.
yeah, yeah, but no team is ever gonna do that. Like I'm all for tanking. If it was up to me, I would have just placed Wentz on IR, like placed Nelson on IR, placed Darius Leonard on IR, just get through the season whatever way they can. But yeah, never was gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't know that the public would have handled giving big contracts out to those players specifically,
Yeah,
and then
that's right.
putting them on IR. I don't know that. How does the public, who's effectively financing the team, right,
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
stomach
that's
that?
right.
So that's one of the problems that I have as someone. I'm starting to sound old manish, and I realize that up front. But now that I've coached it and I've scouted players and I've been writing about this sport and I've also played football from
Yeah,
third grade all the way till I was in my mid 20s, right? Like I've played this game for a long time and I coached it and I write about it and talk about it. And I'm just like, man, first of all, the officiating, it has to change. That has to get better for
Yeah,
this game to
yeah,
maintain its position. But I would also argue that for every other sport too. Like I think one of the biggest thing dragging sports down in popularity where people aren't watching, and I get it, the TV companies, they don't see it the way we see it. But if you told me that when the officiating is good, that
yeah.
50 million people will watch it. But if the officiating's bad, only 45 million people will watch it. I would rather the officiating were good and we get 5 million more views, but that's not how TV companies see that. They
Nah.
see 45 is 90% of our potential and we'll take
So
the
yeah, that's
hit.
fine.
We
Yeah,
don't care about the officiating and they're not going to do anything about that. So that was one of the things that I get it, I'm tooting my own horn. But when I coached semi-pro, imagine all the problems you have with the NFL, specifically like with the officiating, and then just exacerbate those problems, make them worse. And then what
yeah,
we have to teach
yeah,
football players to do is be undeniable, right? Be so much stronger, so much faster, take the correct angle, right? Keep your hip flat, right? Hips flat, rotate your hips through the throat, right? Like do
yeah.
all the
Perfect
things the right
technique.
way,
Yeah,
like you would hope to see out of these football players, and then also expect them to be durable
yeah.
in
Enough to
addition
last the
to.
season.
So it's like you have to be a perfect athletic specimen, but also super tough, and it's very hard to be both athletic and physically tough because those are training for different things.
Yeah,
And I think that's one of the problems that the like Colts fans are having trouble grasping, and it's what I've had to kind of stand in front of my own players and sort of, because we had on my team our offensive line was injured, and we
yeah,
had guys that had played legitimate college football that at wide receiver and running back. So we had guys that had played at a high level that wanted the ball in their hand, and then the guys that were going to block for them are all banged up, and we didn't
yeah.
start a consistent offensive line. So I'm talking about a semi-pro team, but it sounds an awful lot like
Like
the
the
Colts,
Colts.
right? So I kind of when I view the Colts, I'm cringing the whole time, knowing
Yeah, you
that
know that.
when you're already hurt and you're not winning and you're playing your really good players, like you're trying to play through it. Like we were kind of joking earlier about tweeting through it, right? That's what the
Yeah,
Colts have done with this season is they said, despite overwhelming, like it seems common sense-ish for me that the way Carson Wentz went down with Aaron Donald wrapping
yeah,
him up,
yeah. That looked really bad.
just that video alone would make me want to put you on a shelf and say, you know what I want to see? I want to see the same starting offensive line for 2 weeks in a row, and
Nah, that's
then
impossible.
I'll put Andrew Luck, or not, sorry,
Ah,
Carson Wentz, but back there again. And I get that you even said it, that would never happen, right?
yeah,
They would never put Carson Wentz on IR, let the offensive line get healthy, let another quarterback develop, right? For
yeah.
they
Either Eason
we've
or
already we've already been
Ellinger.
talking about that, right? We've been saying, well, not we, not I, but like Colts fans have been clamoring for Jacob Eason, and they've been saying, give this kid a shot. Well, it's pretty clear he's not going to get that shot. He's not ready
Yeah,
because look how twisted up your franchise quarterback got, and they trotted him out the next week, and the guy looked like a worse version of Philip Rivers, right?
yeah. Even with even less athleticism than Rivers, and I thought that was impossible. I thought there was
Right.
no way on earth someone was less athletic than Rivers.
Oh, you have not seen me try to move after having not done physical activity for a long time.
I'll have
I
to
have
watch the
I
tape.
I have more desire than I do ability. You know what I mean? Like you could see that I wanted to a long time ago. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
there's a lot more dreaming about it than there is doing it. And it
yeah, I
comes to
understand.
sports at my advanced age. But look, the Colts got to win, right? So they,
Yeah.
in English we say. Actually, I think you maybe you've heard this from Chris Fowler on ESPN. But the Colts got off the schneid. Does that mean
Ah,
anything?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I think Schneid is German with Jewish influence, but it effectively means
Nice.
you don't owe money anymore. That's what off the Schneid means. When you're on the Schneid, it means like you owe the guy that fixed your
Yeah,
shoes money. And when you're off the Schneid, your shoes that you have gotten fixed are paid for. So
yeah.
the Colts are now 1-3. Um, one of the things that I noticed, uh, if you look back at about the last 8 weeks of sort of our content, like Stampede Blue content, it's almost
Yeah,
like we kind of knew this was going to happen, right? We saw the beginning of this season being really rough.
yeah,
Talk
yeah.
about, you have other friends that are also Colts fans. What kind of conversations were you having before this season about this early part of this season, and then now you've seen this 1-3 happen? Is this kind of what you guys expected down there
Nah,
in Argentina?
most of them like they were optimistic. Like they thought we were going to have a really good season. I was not like, I am still really like, uh, I have my doubts on Reich. I'm not
Mhm.
sure I really like him.
Really?
Yeah, that they got me a lot of hate like in the off season. I remember I posted an article on that, like, is Reich really the right guy for the job? And I got like 40 hate comments, so I shut that down. But yeah, my friends, like,
Really?
they were expecting like a 3-2 start, something like that. I mean,
Okay.
they knew, like, they are not done. Like, they knew that there was a real chance that we were gonna lose like 2 or 3 games, like in the first six at least.
Yeah.
But they were not expecting something like this. Like, to be fair though, injuries like are a big reason why. But there are like, you know, who would have thought like Kenny Moore would be playing like the worst slot cornerback in the league? Braden Smith, the game he played, he was trash. And so much like player regression, Darius Leonard being so bad. Like, it, I believe that not even the most pessimistic fan was expecting to start like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it for me, like, it's just like bad luck. I don't think that this team is really bad as some people are claiming it to be.
Hmm.
And I actually believe that we are still in a position to make the playoffs, especially after Titans lost with the Jets.
Hmm.
And if we get healthy enough, I believe
Yeah.
that this team can beat the Ravens. They can go toe to toe with the Cardinals. They might actually have a chance to beat the Bucks. Like,
Hmm.
they could very easily finish the season at a 10 wins, 11 wins, perhaps,
Hmm.
good enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Uh, I hate to ask a question like that without already knowing the answer, because then I feel like a jerk either way. But have you watched or listened to any of the content I've put out recently about how I've talked about it's hard to trust someone like Carson Wentz fully when something like the vaccine is
Yeah,
a
you're talking about
complicated
the
issue?
YouTube. Yeah, yeah, about either the YouTube videos or the podcast. You were Coach Commute. No, that was Blystone. But yeah, I heard it.
Okay.
Um,
What
but
do you think?
it's
What do you think about that? Do you think like, because you come, obviously the reason I'm asking it like that is because you're from Argentina. You've played sports or like
yeah,
organized sports. So
yeah, yeah.
ha- think about your experiences and how hard would it be to trust somebody if you think about, now like 90% of the Colts are
Are
vaccinated,
vaccinated. Yeah,
but your starting quarterback who
Yeah, that
has gotten paid a whole bunch of money and has gotten blown up for 4 weeks. Like he's just been getting destroyed. And my brain tells me, like, obviously, when you watch film, I've said it over and over again. If Al Qadim Muhammad is on the field, it's going to be a rough down if they
yeah.
run towards
Yeah.
him and he's not generating a pass
Finally.
rush. And then Davenport on offense is not he's not making decisions fast enough when he is trying to get his kick step to get
What's been
vertical.
good to him,
So
just like
so he's just getting bull rushed
yeah,
inside all day.
he's trash. He's just trash.
It's because what he knows is if any of these guys wanted to go around me, they could get around me. So he takes these super elaborate hitch steps to get vertical, and the
Yeah,
guy takes 2 steps
yeah,
upfield and he
just
cuts to the right,
boom.
and goes completely underneath Davenport, and Davenport's literally on his heels, falling backwards. The quarterback's on his face, and you're just like, yeah. I don't know that you could put a $25 million quarterback out there
Behind.
under,
Yeah,
and they just keep doing that. Felt an awful lot like the Colts were damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? That seemed to be the thought process, right? We just paid a bunch of money. It's just like we were talking about prior. Like, if I'm in control, and I think we agree on this, I would put Carson Wentz on IR, Darius Leonard on
yeah.
IR, Quentin Nelson on IR. But then we also just talked about how we just paid those guys a bunch of money, and then what is the public gonna say when you've paid these guys a bunch of money in contract and then turn around and put them on IR directly? Can you even sell tickets to games at that point,
Nah.
right? Or do you have to tell these guys to suck it up and go out there and put on a show? Think about being Jim Irsay.
Yeah,
all
yeah. That
right,
has to
listen.
be a
All
tough
right,
spot
listen,
to be in.
guys. I need you because I got another guitar to buy. Right? Like, I need you to
Yeah,
go out.
yeah. But if
Like,
I, I believe that some of the blame for that has to be put on Ballard. I really
yeah,
like the guy. I believe he's the right guy for the job. But
yeah.
like for me, not getting a replacement for Anthony Walker when he left, and hoping that either EJ Speed or Zaire Franklin would step up, that was just like stupid. Like how
Mhm.
can you not get a replacement for a guy like that? Like then that in the case of Darius Leonard, I really like the hiring of Chris Reed.
Mhm.
And was Davenport like really the best guy for a job? I actually believe like Davenport could easily be the worst tackle in the entire league. What I saw from him was like, is this really the guy that was the best available for what we were able to pay him? Especially having like still there are some quality tackles in the market. Like I believe Russell Okung is still in the market,
Mhm.
and there are other options for the Colts to take.
But aren't
Still
they
coming up.
strapped on cash now? So making a move is kind of difficult.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't
Look
either.
at
I
what
don't either. So
the
I'm not asking a loaded question.
look at
I
what like Kansas City did this offseason. They were essentially strapped on cash. They didn't have that much space,
Mhm.
especially after Patrick Mahomes extension, and they still were able to like get Orlando Brown. Was it Orlando Brown?
Mhm.
Orlando Brown, Joe Tooney. Is it pronounced Tooney? Tooney,
Mhm.
the left guard from the Patriots. And they were
Is it
able to pull it
Laramie
off.
Tunsil? Is that who they got?
No, the left guard from the Patriots. It's Joe
I'm wrong. Oh,
Thuney.
Thuney.
Ah, Tooney. Yeah, that
Yeah,
guy.
I'm wrong always. That's the way I look at it.
Uh, no, like
But
so.
yeah, no, I see
I,
what you're saying. So, like,
yeah,
offensive line is a problem. I think that here's something that I think Colts land hasn't quite accepted yet. But much like Andrew Luck's surprise retirement, I also think Anthony Costanzo's retirement
yeah,
was
that really hurt the team. Yeah,
untimely in that clearly the Colts hadn't quite registered what happens if Anthony Costanzo's not here, and clearly given that Davenport is still on this active roster as of the recording of this podcast, October 6th, he's still in the NFL. Um, Clearly the Colts have accepted that if Eric Foster isn't who we thought he was, then we're just screwed at tackle. There's no
Yeah,
sense in
yeah,
spending
pretty much
money.
it.
But lots of people have said, like, why not put Will Freese in there, or why not when
Put
um,
Nelson at tackle,
or
and
why
I read some.
why not put Chris Reed at left tackle? He seems to
Yeah,
be
that's
he has
trash.
longer arms. Um, but I think Nelson, you put your Pro Bowler at the position he plays. I hate to be that
Yeah,
guy,
yeah.
but
Not even Pro Bowler, but
you would
your
want to
first
put
team All
some.
Pro. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. You
yeah.
want to keep
Hey,
him at left
yes,
guard. Yeah.
all pro. You would want to have left guard. So I would rather
Mm.
take a chance with like I said, a Will Freeze or Chris Reed, like give somebody a shot there, because there's too many times, and this is my biggest pet peeve. And like I said, I already tooted my own horn and said, like, I coached the shit, I played it too. My biggest pet peeve is when the quarterback's on the ground and the guy whose fault it is standing like right there, right? Looking down at the guy at his quarterback, who's literally like, Jesus Christ, they just got destroyed by like 700 pounds of people. And he looks up, and the fat guy, the lineman whose fault it is, like, oh, my bad, dude. Like,
Yeah,
my bad,
mostly
man.
Davenport.
And it's mostly Davenport. And
Yeah,
my thing is, like, I like what Quentin Nelson does, right? He meets the ball carrier and lifts him off the ground, right?
yeah, 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 yeah. I really like
Davenport
that idea
gives up
too.
a sack, and
He
instead of
just
like,
stands there, you know.
he
He's
just
like they're
stands there and looks at a dead body, like, oh,
like, oh
that's my
well,
fault.
yeah,
Man, so that's where I am really. Like, the Colts are going to be poo, absolute doo doo on offense, and there's no other way to talk about it. Like, they're going to be shitty,
yeah,
straight up, in their pass game, as long as Carson Wentz is on the mend and on the run constantly. But that's, like I said, again, this is something I've been saying since, I believe, the end of last season. It was on, like, during the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes was getting his ass kicked, and
yeah,
they talked about how maybe he was exhausted. And that he had actually gotten tired, and it had taken a step from him, and then he wasn't able to evade the pass rush as fluidly as he had prior.
yeah,
And the statistic comes out, and I don't know about you, but like when you hear something and it's so evident and truthful that and I'm not even a religious person, so when I say stuff like that, I actually mean, like,
yeah,
on an NFL broadcast. I don't remember who they were interviewing, but I want to say it was like either Bill Belichick or like a Nick Saban.
yeah,
And he said, well, they were talking about the prevalence of athletic quarterbacks in the playoffs. And either one of those coaches said the reason that athletic quarterbacks are where it's at when it comes to the playoffs is the reality is that 70% of thrown footballs are done on the
yeah. Are
run
outside the
outside the
pocket.
box.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
So
read that too.
once I read that, it confirmed for me, before Carson Wentz was signed, where the Colts had to go.
Yeah,
Wherever they went from Philip Rivers, and I get it, it's sort of like you can laugh about that as long as they're a better athlete than Philip Rivers. Which is like, well, there's 37 quarterbacks in the NFL that are a better athlete than Philip
yeah.
Rivers, right?
You know,
But what
even
I
more than
mean
that,
was,
perhaps. Yeah,
Sam Darnold last year, in my eyes, represented the least athletic you could be at quarterback and still be a good quarterback. And then I also get to say, because I'm a USC fan, he then went to Carolina and
he's
lost
doing really
about
well.
20 pounds because of the Carolina, like, heat. And he looks really good in Carolina. And I'm
Yeah,
happy for him. And
yeah, yeah.
I'm
He's having a really
I'm
nice season.
I'm glad he's not in the AFC, right? I'm certainly glad he's not in my division because they're going to be tough for a while.
Yeah, they even got Gilmore
Yeah,
there. Yeah, that's a
and
really good team.
he's going back home too. He's going to play like his house is on fire. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to do so good. He's playing in front of a friendly home crowd half the games now. Imagine, as opposed to playing in cold New England. And I'm only
Yeah,
saying that because when you're from the Carolinas, and then half the games you play in the NFL every year are played in what you
in
would
New
consider
England. Yeah.
New England, right? It's probably not as comfortable. He's probably
Yeah.
going to be a lot happier at playing home games in Charlotte, for the record.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that I'm happy that you're on my podcast here early in my 5th episode. Uh, I had a conversation with Brett Mock about how lately on Stampede Blue there had been a lack of podcasts, and I wanted to make sure to reach out to my colleagues and say, hey, does anybody want to be on my show? So I'm glad that you're here. I think the reason you became a Colts fan is the funniest story.
Yeah.
um I was a Chicago Bears fan because I lived in Chicago, and I moved to Indiana in 1994. And then because I'm not looking at it and I don't want to be that guy, the Colts played the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs, and I believe the Steelers won, but it was like a valiant effort by the Colts. Like they were an underdog, and it was like a big deal. And that's what converted me,
Yeah.
for the record, to
Yeah. I
being a
think that I
Colts fan.
remember that game. Yeah.
I think that was 1997. And then right after what I perceived to have been like, if you're going to be a Colts fan, that's like a good moment to become one. And then they
Yeah.
drafted Peyton Manning like right after that, and it just
Yeah.
felt
That was a really good time to become a Colts fan. Yeah.
it was a really good timing, especially as a young person, to sort of, oh, they're the hometown team. And if you remember, if you think about the 90s, the Pacers were good, the
Yeah.
Colts were
Yeah. They
good.
were
So
really
like
good back there. Yeah.
my
Reggie
child,
Miller and
oh yeah. So I've been very fortunate. I've always said that. I've been so lucky that the city I live in has had competitive sports teams. And I also understand that everybody wants to win a championship and frequently can't see the forest for the trees, because a lot of times you'll hear like, what has this franchise done for the city of Indianapolis? And I
yeah.
always say, like, dude, we played a Super Bowl here. Like, we had a Super Bowl in Indianapolis. That's so mind blowing. If you were a little kid in Indianapolis 20 years ago when it was Market Square Arena, you'd have never thought in a million years that we had what it took to host the world's game, right? The Super Bowl, right? And we got to do that. So, like, when you have a well-run organization that attracts basically the eyeballs of the world,
Yeah.
and Indianapolis has always gotten compliments for being a great host. And
Yeah.
I have tons of friends that are viewers of my content that work downtown Indianapolis in the clubs and bars and stuff. So I know that, hey, if you come to Indianapolis and you stay downtown and you go out to eat, I know you're going to get well taken care of, because those are my people. I worked at the comedy clubs and at the restaurants in this city, and I know that we're wonderful hosts. It's a
Yeah. 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 They're fun people.
so I always want to make sure I say, if you ever get the inkling to travel, as we sit here um, chit chatting about the Colts, um, if you ever get the inkling to come to Indy, I'd love to host you. I'd love for you to come here and go to a game. I'd love that to do that with any of the guys from Stampede Blue, but I'd love for you to do that.
But
Obviously,
they live plenty of, I know, like Stephen Reed like lives in Indiana, I believe.
no, he lives in
Elliot
Virginia.
is from he's not from Indiana.
Mm-mm. Elliot, I believe, lives in
He's
England,
from the
right?
UK. Yeah. And Andrew is from Canada, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Andrew Aziz lives in Canada. Faraz lives north of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Chris Blystone lives
Andrew.
north of Indianapolis.
Andrew is from
Ooh.
Indiana, I believe.
Maybe. I don't know Andrew. He's newer, right?
Yeah, he's new. He's new. We can judge him. He's the
Yeah.
new guy. I'm no longer the
He's
new
the
guy. Really
he's the
happy
F
about
and
that.
G. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure. See. Never thought to haze you for being the new guy, and now that you're no longer the new guy, it feels like a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. 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 Nah, still I mean, I believe like it's 2 years now since I joined. Yeah,
Mhm.
more than 2 years. So you
So
can no longer
you're not
hate.
the yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not the new guy,
It's
man.
been two
I'm a
years.
seasoned vet.
So
No way you can hate
obviously,
me now.
let's let's sort of get back on track here.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sorry.
want to sort of put some nuts and bolts together. The Colts get a big win in Miami, which I think a lot of people expected, and then have to turn around and play in a big game on the road again in Baltimore against the Ravens.
Yeah.
I think I'd seen early lines. The Colts were something along the lines of like a touchdown underdog.
Yeah.
But you've
I believe
you've said you feel like
6.5.
yeah, you feel like the Colts can go in on the road and make some noise
Yeah.
here, huh?
The Ravens are not as good as some people are pointing them out to be. Like their offensive line, like it's really bad. Alejandro Villanueva has been one of the worst tackles in the NFL so far. Like they are not as good as some people are pointing them out to be. Sure, they did beat the Chiefs. That look really good by Lamar Jackson is looking really good.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. But they certainly have their flaws, and if the team can put together like if the defense steps up, then we have a chance. I believe the offense can do like just enough for the Colts to come up with a win.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really see us winning this one. I can picture it.
I'm not quite as optimistic because I've started to establish some rules in my life. And my first two rules are don't bet against Patrick Mahomes and don't bet against Lamar Jackson because that
Yeah, those are two
clearly
really good rules. Yeah, I like those rules.
clearly those are very easily mistakes to make. Um, there were, for the record, there have also been periods in time where you didn't bet against Christian McCaffrey to a rush for 100 yards. He had like a 19 game stretch. LaDainian Tomlinson back in the day, I believe, had like a 32 game stretch with at least a touchdown or something crazy. So it's pretty much
Yeah,
a lock. But other than that, it's like your number one receiver against the Colts is going to go nuts, and the Ravens have just happened to have invested more money in wide receivers. So that's one of the reasons, Lamar Jackson, and then the Colts troubles at cornerback. We're like you
yeah,
said, like
yeah.
Kenny
We have no
Moore
one
has
there.
played terribly.
Yeah, Kenny
Um,
Moore has been bad. Rhodes has been bad. I don't think that Yasin will be ready to go. DJ Gary's out for the season. Isaiah Rodgers has looked bad, understandably so.
yeah,
So yeah, we have no one there.
yeah. I was I find myself like every year when I watch the Colts, it feels like the players understand the concept of the defense and they know how to line up in it. And then once the ball is snapped, if
Yeah,
the offense does anything that they didn't expect, they're out of alignment, off their assignment. The play is blown from the defense, and you could tell that they also saw this in practice, and it's like they didn't rep it to perfection, because what will happen is you'll see a breakdown and then you'll see other players stop running, and it's like,
yeah,
oh, they
yeah.
knew
It
because they
happens. Yeah,
practiced it, that once you see, oh, his hips were pointed the wrong way, this ball's here, oh, touchdown, these guys, the safety didn't even bother to continue to run. So the
yeah,
Colts, I think the Colts are in trouble. One, because Lamar Jackson, when he decides to run with the ball, is so much more fluid a runner and moves so much more fluidly than I've seen any Colts defender move. Right. So I think on that front alone, I think the Colts are going to have a hard time getting a hand on Lamar Jackson. So I think while he is going to be running for his life because of, again, to completely butcher someone's name, Anthony Villanueva, but their tackle has played so visibly poor that, like you said, it does make it to where there's like a possibility where the Colts could pressure him enough into making enough mistakes that this Colts offense, that again has been wounded up front and really hasn't had any steady production from any of its receivers. Like nobody's really put on a show at wide receiver, taking pressure off your O line, forcing teams into a coverage situation. Instead, they just get to send four and get home. force you into a bad throw and don't have to play great coverage to win. That's the sort of problem the Colts have been having. So I get it.
Yeah.
In my mouth vomit, I just diagnosed what's wrong on both sides of the ball. But I
Yeah.
think it's actually, are you ready for this? I could tell you why the Colts struggle. So
Hear it.
they go full contact in practice very early. Probably the beginning of training
May
camp, like July, and then they don't actually play a game that matters until like
until September.
September. So what happens is, any, and I'm sort of being a nerd about this, but it's like any energy you spend, there's like a opposite reactions waiting for that, right? So here's
Yeah.
my theory, right? What happens is, and it's because I just got done also coaching against, not coaching against, coaching with two what I would consider like knucklehead football coaches. You know what I mean? They're not
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? So what happens is that everybody's itching to hit, and everybody wants to put on pads, and everybody wants to go out there and hit each other. And what people don't realize is that there's this thing called friendly fire, right? Where when you're hitting Quentin Nelson
The
versus
forest
DeForest
Buckner.
Buckner a
Yeah.
million times, eventually one of them is going to break, right? Or
Yeah. Sure.
what they tend to do though is they tend not to hit the quarterbacks. So
That's
what
smart.
ends up happening is that everyone else, I interviewed what's his name? He plays for the Steelers now. Eric Ebron, and we
Yeah.
talked and
Yeah. We
that
don't really
last
like
year
that
he
guy
was
now.
here. The last year he was
Yeah.
here, remember the Colts were really injured. And I
Yeah.
asked him, what's up with that? Like, why is everybody always injured? And he said, you know what the coaches tell us is because of how much money we get paid, the best ability we could have is
It's
availability.
availability. Yeah. That
So
makes sense.
they literally coach the players. I hate to say that because it makes you sound like I'm saying the coaches are very obviously negligent, but they literally tell the players because of how much money you make, you should play hurt, right?
Yeah. That's
Because
not the right
otherwise,
message to send.
people won't come and watch the Colts, even if they're good, right? And then you have to figure the NFL is supporting that message because
It's all
if
about
you
the
think
money.
if you think about protecting the shield, right? Nobody watches the Colts in terms of what the NFL brings in terms of viewership. Like the Colts are like 19th in the league in terms of being viewed until they're good. So that's the trouble with the Midwest is that
Yeah. Small market team
you're going
problems.
to be small market until you're perfect. And that's the problem. So the perception of the Colts is that they're like poorly constructed. And what I think happened actually is uh, I think that, for the last couple years, we've been dealing with this pandemic and it has changed people's daily
Yeah.
lives. And I think what ends up happening is, and this is my opinion, I don't know this, but I think you think about being a pro athlete and being worth millions and millions of American dollars, and I'm not in that position. I would love to be because
Yeah.
I
Me
think
neither.
I'd make great decisions. I promise. But if you think about being that worth that amount of money in this sort of like world economy that we're in, uh, I would once football is done, you'd probably not see me in public for a
Yeah.
very long time because I wouldn't want to be one. I wouldn't want to get COVID, but more importantly, I wouldn't want to show people that it's like okay to go out in public during all of this that's happening, right? I wouldn't want to suggest that that's like the right thing to do. So what ends up happening is once the football season ends, and I'm just saying these Colts players, they disappear. They only go back to the facility to like work out, and they're not working out all that intensively, right? And then they ramp up right before training camp, and they get into training camp and they start hitting each other right away.
Yeah.
And if you watch the video coming out of training camp, they're very visibly
Yeah.
like going full speed. They're getting after it, right? That's what they
Yeah. That
call it,
was
getting
unnecessary.
after
Yeah.
it. And then you always see the Colts start the season with like double-digit people on the injury
Yeah.
list,
That's dumb. Yeah.
and then the Colts are on the mend. And I think what the Colts have decided is that we're gonna make sure that the guys that we're paying to play like put
Are
in the
still
work,
playing. Yeah.
and then we would rather be competitive late in the season and trying to qualify for the playoffs effectively, right? Like instead of what they had been doing was they had a world-class organization where every year, every game, they were so hyper competitive that they were in line to go to the playoffs early in the season, and that meant late in the season they would sit players, right? You think about the Peyton
Yeah. That was
Manning era
before. Yeah.
when you had Peyton Manning, you get to like week 15, Peyton didn't
And you
play.
already start sitting stars. Yeah.
Now the Colts are in the opposite scenario where
It's
they
kind of
want
fun.
they want Carson Wentz to be the guy, but they weren't ready to start the season. And what they're banking on is that Carson Wentz is the guy, and that
Yeah.
when they're healthy, and I obviously we hope that they're correct, that they're even more competitive than they were even in a win last week where everything kind of went right.
Yeah. They still look. Yeah. They still look kind of bad though. They didn't
Yes,
look as dominant as they should be, especially going up against a quarterback like Jacoby Brissett, who really looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. We Colts fans know too well that he's not a good NFL quarterback.
right,
So yeah, I still believe like we could have been much better than what we were.
absolutely. And the thing that you have to hope here is I was kind of joking with this coach on Twitter today about how everybody keeps saying that these teams are running a cover two, and then
Yeah, when they're not.
the Colts don't run a primary cover two; they run it sparingly. And it was funny that I saw a prominent sports writer who we won't give air to, but he said um, all these teams do is play man press or cover two. And then I'm not even a defensive coach. I wouldn't consider my
Yeah, yeah, you're the
defensive mind.
offensive coordinator.
I'm an offensive coordinator and a primary play
Yeah,
caller. And I know that that's not correct because that's what you want, because if they're in cover two, you run, and if they're in man press, you throw the ball deep. So you're putting me in positions I want to be in, and I know that that's not how defense is played. So that's not what's happening. And then I saw this coach, is Coach Voss, said it's funny that it's clear that these people that write about sports don't do their homework and they don't know what match zone is or match man is. That
yeah,
there's like several different defenses and it's not all coverage based, or it's, you know what I mean? It's not all coverage based. It's not always, oh, it's a 4-4 base cover too. It's not always that linear. There's nuance, and it's about based on player availability determines scheme and stuff like that. So there's a lot more nuance that people are willing to give to the public. So I also think that's true. I think the teams the Colts lost to early, with the exception of the Titans, I think the Titans are beatable. But I think that
yeah, yeah. I agree
teams
with
like
that.
the Rams and the Seahawks are like, either the Seahawks are borderline playoff bound,
Yeah,
but
yeah. The
the Rams are
Seahawks.
like winning their division, right? Like, so
Yeah, the
that's,
Seahawks kind of look really bad right now. Like they
yeah,
just lost. They are two
yeah,
and two, and they actually go against the Rams this week.
yeah. I think that the Rams are going to win that game, and it probably won't be that close. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that on you.
I just think
They lost to
I
the
think they're more
Vikings.
efficient. They what?
They lost to the Vikings.
Right.
That's bad. That's a bad look.
It's a bad look, yeah. My wife likes the Vikings because of How I Met Your Mother.
From what was the name? Marshall.
Marshall is
And
a
that's
Vikings fan.
Marshall is a
Cool.
Vikings fan. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm glad that you
there we go.
understood that reference. That makes me
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
really
yeah. I'm a big fan.
That's so awesome. Well, hey, we've been chit-chatting for probably about 45, 50 minutes. Um, I want to give an opportunity to you to share like your social media, how to get in, follow you. Um, and then obviously if you have anything else you want to say, and then I'll probably just say, hey, where you can find me, and you can follow my podcast on Twitter, and then get us out of here.
Yeah,
All you, big
yeah,
guy.
yeah. So yeah, my Twitter handle is at Mateo Calis. It's MateoCea. No, CaOy Sit. But yeah, mostly follow my stuff on Stampede Blue. Just that. No more than that.
Okay. Well, Mateo, thank you for being on my podcast here at the Coltist. Again, this is my 5th episode. We're recording this prior to our Week 5 game of the 2021 season. The Colts will play on the road against the Ravens. Mateo here thinks the Colts have an opportunity to upset. I would take the Colts. Against the spread, for the record. So the Colts are, what would we say, they're
Ah,
about a
yeah.
6.5 point
Yeah, I believe it was
underdog.
something like that.
So I would definitely
Yeah,
take the Colts in
we look at it.
6. I think the Colts. Here's what I'll say: I don't expect the Colts to win, but I do believe there's some story between these two
6.5.
franchises, right? And
Yeah,
there's reason to believe. Uh, it's just like you said, the Ravens aren't as good as we might think they are, and the Colts aren't as bad as they've looked. And when you kind of line those things up, it kind of leads me down the
yeah,
path of thinking this is a close game. I wouldn't necessarily. I'm a little hesitant to say I think the Colts can win. I think the Colts can keep it interesting, and I think given our injury situation, that's not an awful spot to be in, right?
yeah, yeah,
Injured,
yeah, yeah.
but potentially competitive to one of the more dangerous teams in the league, and that's certainly looking up from where we have been, because first few weeks of the season it was looking pretty
Have
rough,
been rough. Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
now
They
it's
have
like,
been
hey,
rough.
we could actually go on the road 2 weeks in a row in the NFL and get a win, and
That's really
that's
something. Yeah.
doesn't happen very often. So, like I said, this has been episode 5 of the Cultist. My name is Jared Malott. You can follow me on Twitter at Likely Alien. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at The Cultist, where I'll just post links to the YouTube video that I upload. Primarily, it's not like we're sharing any memes there. And then you can follow us on Instagram, where I'll try to post art that I create for the Cultist, uh, along with a link to the podcast. So I appreciate your support. Obviously, if you enjoy the podcast, especially like a video podcast involving 2 countries, I don't remember ever watching a podcast where the people were talking were from 2 different countries. Ultimately, I would love to do a podcast where you insulted me in Spanish the whole time under your breath. I think that would be hilarious.
And you
But
wouldn't
yeah,
get it.
and I would know what would happen is I would watch it afterward, and then I'd have to like write down what I did understand,
Yeah, and you would really
and
struggle with that. Yeah.
yeah, and then like try to rebut that like 2 weeks later. So it would be a mess. But in any case, I appreciate you being here, man. And like I said, I appreciate anybody that intakes our content, intakes my content, anybody that shares it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't, and spread the good word. I think I'm gonna have to hang up too,
Oh.
but I'll call you back. I'll call you back.
Okay. Okay.
We got to have us Rakia exit as we do entry, because that's kind
Yeah,
of
it's fitting. Yeah, like
it's like fitting for the
oh
Colts, I think.
yeah, yeah, it's fitting.
Dumpster fire-ish, but not quite Jacksonville. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it gets the job done. It's not good looking, but it
it's
gets the
not
job
good,
done.
but it gets the job done.